This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Monday Twilight Show with me, Hannah Wilson. Tonight I'm getting to the nitty-gritty of it. Do core subjects have more value than non-core subjects? Let's have a chat about it. I think things have aged and everything has a place and it's quite even. So why do we still value the core subjects more highly? So get involved. Feel free to message or call in.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Teaching is a rewarding profession, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. That's where ADAPT come in. We're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern, apolitical alternative, offering expert legal, employment and mental health support. Protection without the politics. So what makes ADAPT different? We're always apolitical and independent, specialised solely in supporting individual teachers. Our caseworkers are professionally qualified, ensuring you always get the best advice. Plus, there's 24/7 mental health support. Whether it's a simple contract check or handling serious allegations, ADAPT are here for you. Join the thousands of educators who've chosen ADAPT to protect their careers. Subscribe at adapt.org.uk today. ADAPT. Supporting school staff. Protecting careers.
Okay, well, welcome to my Monday night show. So this is, if you've listened to me before, know very well that I'm an art teacher. So I'm coming from that angle. I'm going to fight for my subject's worth tonight. But there's like a hierarchy, isn't there, in school, that like maths and English are the most important subjects. And then it's science, and then kind of modern foreign languages and geography and history. And then like it's a free-for-all with everything else. And that's how kind of like the buckets work. And I know that there's been suggestions of kind of adding more importance and having extra subjects count and stuff like that. But I just think that society's changed a lot since that kind of structure was put in place. And I'm not devaluing maths or English in any way. Yes, our students very much need to know how to read and write and all of that kind of thing. And I think it's important that they're able to articulate themselves, be able to have an intelligent argument and be able to put their point across well. Like, I think that's something that we need to make sure our students are able to do. But that doesn't mean that we can't do in other subjects. In my previous show on oracy talks about that as well, like how we can use oracy to debate and discuss different things and improve our students' life skills. Because I think school has changed in the fact that we do need to equip them better. Like, society's changing and we need to think about how we're teaching them. And the same with maths. Like, there's that, I think there's a lot of disconnect between parents and maths because they found it hard at school and they've never had to use that type of maths since leaving school. But if you were to go to school and you were to learn about the percentages of interest on a credit card or the different ways that mortgage rates work and how that changes on the percentage of your deposit, things like that could be useful and transfer over, then I would not have a qualms that maths isn't important. But technology's changed. Like, every kid has a phone at all hours of the day. Like, do they need to know maths as much? Do they need to be able to recite their times tables if they've got their phone in their hand? Like, is it as important as it was? And I've got maths A level. Like, I do enjoy maths, and I will dabble and teach a bit of maths occasionally. So I'm not throwing it under the bus. It has its place. And it's same with like kind of modern foreign languages. Like, I think it's really important that students be able to speak another language. I love the fact that I've lived abroad and have picked up bits and can have conversations in other languages. But at the same time, we now have Google Translate that we didn't have before. Like, is that as much of a valued life skill? Why is that still up there as such an important thing that our students should have to do? But yet some of them can't even read and write. So it's like, do we need to take that and move the focus? And same with science. Like, I think it's really important that we know how things work and how they're created and things and how the science behind it. And don't get me wrong, like obviously we were kind of one of the leading countries in developing the vaccine and things like that. So, and we are quite forward in our scientific research as a country, but it's also one of those that the kids that are into that are going to be into that. The kids that aren't. But do we need to pressurize the ones that aren't into that, or do we need to make it more of a playing field across kind of all the subjects and what our students want to do? So I'm going to reel off back. So I'm going from the creative point of view to start off with. So kind of these are facts from the creative industries. They have the most amazing poster that is always on my wall. And I just find it really interesting. So I quite often get the kids that they ask me like, "Oh, why do we have to do art? That's not important. Like, what's the point?" And like, I will literally point at the poster and be like, "Not to mention you. Like, everything you're wearing, everything you're holding, all your phone, all your apps, everything is designed by a designer. Your water bottle, your forks, your knives, like your shoes, your hair products, everything would have been designed by somebody." And actually, there's a lot more open to students in terms of that area than perhaps they think of. It's not just kind of painting and stuff. It's about the creative process and problem solving. That's what they get out of art. They don't necessarily get out that they're amazing drawers, but the thing that they should all take away is the fact that they can problem solve. So these are from 2019, and actually the creative industry has grown. So they release these every kind of few years, but they have grown. I haven't got the new poster yet, but so there's 2.1 million creative jobs in the UK, and there were 61,000 new jobs in 2019. And the growth market of the UK of the creative sector is 2.7 times the job growth of any other area in the UK. And it's quite a balance. There's 33% is self-employed and 67% is employed. So there's that balance of kind of being able to employ or have your own kind of work-life balance and own independence. So there's just so much more opportunity, and I don't think our students necessarily kind of understand, and maybe the creative subjects aren't kind of advertised correctly in that respect, and the things that they can get from different subjects and the skills that they can get from those and transfer are really important. So the creative industry is just growing and growing and growing, but it's not just the fact that there's all these jobs, it's also job quality. And the lovely Suzanne Carles, if you don't follow her as an art teacher, she's an amazing art activist, and she says like when it comes on these datas or these, like I think there was one in one of the newspapers which like the most highest earning jobs, and it was like kind of putting art really low, and it's like, but what about job satisfaction? Why are we teaching our kids that they just need to go out and earn as much money as possible? Why are we not teaching them that you need to go find a job that you love and adore, and it's not work and it doesn't feel like work, and it won't stress you out? Yes, you might not earn quite as much as if you are a lawyer or what have you, but you'll live a happy life. Like, and I think job quality is really important, and I think that's something that the creative industry has a lot more. There's a higher job satisfaction in those jobs as well. And also they build you skills that make you more resilient, like the problem solving and the constantly having to adapt and develop. It actually means that you're kind of building more skills and able to adapt, and less likely to have mental health problems if you're in one of those industries. So about 1 in 8 UK businesses is in the creative industry. So it really is that big. So why, if it's that big, are we not putting more of a kind of emphasis on it in schools? And this includes kind of media and sport. They're all kind of in there. So 94% are micro businesses employing fewer than 10 staff, whereas 87.6 have a turnover of less than £250,000 a year. So there are little businesses in there as well. But I think it was where, just finding the figure, because it just is outstanding the amount of money that it brings in as well. In the fact that we actually export a lot of our creative industries, and actually we're bringing in quite large amounts of money from the creative industries, and the fact that we are developing things and we are kind of doing this service that we're able to. So here we go. The export service of the creative industry rose by 10.9% to a total of £19.8 billion, and that was in 2014, and it's risen more since then. Whereas it was 2.3% from the same period in other areas of the UK economy. So we're talking like five-fold kind of increase in the amount that we're able to export as well. So we should be kind of pushing people into these kind of creative jobs and making them understand the value of them, as opposed to always being like, oh, well, that's like a hobby, it's not really a job. So I think it is one of those where yes, I think people don't pick it because they think it's like a lame idea, it's not as kind of, you'd have failed if you picked it kind of thing. And I think that's a bit of a shame. And the kind of other side of it that kind of brought me into this kind of topic was actually an article in The Guardian. So they were talking about the fact that art colleges have kind of disappeared, and the fact that the buildings were once a sign of civic pride, and that colleges that once fostered talent, often from working class backgrounds, have vanished at an alarming rate. And that the two beneficiaries of the system are documented in demise. So, ironically, the guy who wrote the article came back to Norfolk, which is where I'm from, to find his old art college in Great Yarmouth, but unfortunately it is closed. But actually, one of its greatest alumni was Keith Chapman, the creator of Bob the Builder. And now it's just kind of a building. It's no longer an art school. And you kind of think of somewhere what you study, like a university, you think it is permanent. You don't think it is something that's going to disappear, but actually it has. And actually he looked into it, and actually quite a lot of them have disappeared, or they've been amalgamated into larger institutions. So obviously there's places like the Royal College of Art and Norwich University Arts in this direction has grown and grown and grown, and it's now got whole drama units as well. And so there are areas that are thriving and becoming more of it, but the kind of the traditional, back in the kind of 1930s, 1940s kind of art school where people went to kind of don't really exist anymore. And it was kind of the places where people would like build their skills and find their interests, and it kind of rose to create in the kind of 60s and 70s the kind of incubator for pop stars and film directions and fashion designers that kind of kickstarted the British popular culture. And kind of, are we kind of reducing that opportunity, that we're not going to be as creative as we previously were by not giving people these opportunities to be able to do that? And I think as a country, we are very much, if you think of kind of what Britain is, and even if you go to the coronation or the Jubilee, it's all celebrating, it's all music and dance and art and like the Prince's Trust. Like, we are a country that kind of cherishes that, and we do kind of try to promote it, but it's not necessarily seen as important, especially not in school, even though kind of that's actually what our country's mostly about. And I think I find that a weird proposition, that the two don't kind of line up, especially as kind of the career sector develops. And I think it is developing in a more modern way. And I think, yes, they need to know computer science and kind of the science behind things, but actually the creative side is really important. And if I was to go back to university, I would go back to my master's university, which is the Norwich University Art. They've now got a user interaction degree where you can go and learn about how people interact with apps on phones. And it's all about how, if you change certain designs and stuff, like, I didn't realise that the shade of red on an alert would more likely make you click on it and open that app. Like, things like that. Like, the science behind that is so beyond me, but it's an art. It's an arts kind of career. And that's where we get more kind of developing as technology develops. We are more of an art. So why is it not getting the accolade that it should do? And And one of the things that I do, I always get the Norwich University Arts to come and talk to my students, but they did this thing quite a few years ago where they looked at the 10 skills. So they basically asked loads and loads of employers to name the skills that they wish their employees had. And these were the 10 skills that they had. And I think they mostly come from the creative subjects. So one of them was, I'm going to read them all out. So we got communicating with colleagues and partners. So I think things like drama and being able to articulate arguments and stuff is very much coming across there. Demonstrating a positive attitude. So again, I think that comes across quite often. Flexibility and adaptability. I mean, that's definitely an art thing, being able to adapt and change and learn as when things go wrong, how you deal with those. Handling customers and clients. I think, again, that's quite a drama thing, and how you interact with people and learning those things. Interpreting a brief, very much kind of an artsy thing. You get literally a title or a brief, and you have to develop that. Meeting deadlines and delivering brief. I mean, everything from the start of your year 10 to year 11 counts for your GCSEs. And I think our kids, the fact that they have their art exam before any of their other exams start, and quite often just before the exams start are your school's mocks, the fact that our kids have to deal with that and deal with their deadlines and how that works, they build those skills. Resilience, again, another one. They're constantly told in art to fail and learn from it and how they develop from it. Responding to feedback, granted, I will allow that one to go to everyone. Showing attention to detail, again, I think that's a lot of the creative subjects, and working in a team, but that can be like things like in PE and things like that. And I think there has just got as many places as us, and I think that kind of goes for looking at that side of it as well. Like, why does kind of catering and things like that, and you get like 1 hour a week, whereas English and maths get kind of all these hours? But actually, if we look at our country, we have an issue with our children and the fact that they do not eat properly, and they have just basically processed food has been like soared through the last few years, and we don't really know the full effect that that's having on our children. But our children are not getting the education on how to eat healthily to the point where it's drilled in. Yes, they're told about it, but we know that like habits take a really long time to form, and we're not kind of giving the students the opportunity to really understand in depth the health benefits of eating properly and portion control and how to cook properly. I mean, seeing all the tweets from the university students of like, my child now knows how to cook 2 meals, good luck, kind of things. And it's one of them is baked beans on toast. Like, they should be cooking, they should be, and also like, parents are both working more, like equip your children, let them like help out at home. My little one loves cooking. Like, I think it's important that they know how to cook, and they're not like the first time they're cooking is when they finally leave home, but they are able to do that, and they're able to cook healthily. And I think the benefits of that, and I think getting even the government to think about, actually, if we put more funding in to make that happen, the impact that can have on the NHS at a later time, along with if you pair that with PE and making them have more PE, more understanding in it. And I think, gosh, I'm going right back to one of my very first shows. I had Josh, who's a strength and conditioning coach at a private school, and the way that they do sport and they kind of drill it in, and how they teach them how to do things properly. And I think it's one of those, like, a lot of people will go maybe scared to go in the gym because they don't understand it, or they then lift wrong and then injure themselves. Like, we should be teaching our students how to have really healthy habits to build really good lives, where they know how to exercise properly, and they know how to eat properly, and that they know how to manage their mental health properly. And I think the education system hasn't shifted, but the kids have. And I think, especially since COVID, everybody knows that school is harder to teach in since COVID. And I think it's a mental health problem. Like, the kids can't regulate themselves. They haven't got that resilience. Like, I do notice that the kids in my classes if I look at their results, they're flying way higher than other subjects, because they've built that resilience and I've taught them it, and they know how to thrive in my subject because I've taught them how to. I've taught them those coping mechanisms, and they know that they can do it because I believe in them. But I think we need to adapt and change what we're teaching our kids and making sure that we are setting them up for a healthy life, because I think, I mean, not having a go at parents, but I think there's a big gap in what parents are telling children at home, the feed that they're feeding, the kind of lifestyle that they're living, that, and especially in COVID, we saw a lot of our students from deprived backgrounds didn't do the study, and they just kind of sat around gaming, kind of drinking Red Bulls and Monsters. Like, how many of them come in and have energy drinks before school or on the way to school? And it's, they're not really understanding the impact that that has on their health and on their body and their mind. And I know it's one of those that, oh, well, we've told them, they do kind of know, but are we doing them? If we're drilling into the point that they can, to make sure that they can read and do maths to A level, why are we not drilling into them how to be healthy, how to live a life where you can manage your own stress through exercise and eat well, and how to not stress eat and things like that, and things like, but also like this, the science. Does science need to adapt? I'm sure Lydia will pop up in a moment to comment on the science, but is it that actually we need to adapt what we're teaching them so that they understand diseases better and how better to look for things? Like, I feel like there's just so much pressure on our NHS, and our NHS is not in the best of states. But is it made worse because people don't know how to look after themselves and don't know how to, if you're injured or you get ill, the kind of ways that you can look after yourself and make yourself better, as opposed, and eat right and eat healthy? Do they actually know that, like, if you have garlic or ginger and stuff, those actually help your immune system and you're less likely to get colds and things, as opposed to just whack some paracetamol in them? I think we need to make sure that we're equipping our students as best as we can to go out into the outside world. And I do think there's so much that the other subjects can do. I find it really difficult that the weighting of how much time is dedicated to the core subjects and why they're so important, and why that is what every school is judged at. Why is it that when I got results day, we just got the sheet with the maths, English, science, and everything. Ours wasn't on it. We didn't get any of ours till much later. And it was a bit like, kind of, I know that they're important and I get that they're important, but there could be kids in there that are like maybe getting their 4s or 5s just, but they get 9s in other subjects because they're thriving. And I feel that that should be celebrated just as much, and it's just as important. It shouldn't be that, like, it's only celebrated if you can make kids get these high grades in those core subjects and make them into these really kind of intelligent students, but they can only do that, sit in that little bubble. Like, we should make them all-rounded students that are interested in what is going on in the world and how they can make a difference and how to change things and how to be creative in that respect. Because I think if you can problem solve, life is way easier, and you can adapt and develop and understand things much easier if you kind of can learn to problem solve. And I think that's quite often what's, I think, I don't know the psychology of children's post-COVID, but I do think that the resilience of the students has gone down, and they are very much, it'll get sorted, because it has so far. They're fine. Like, it's not the end of the world if they don't do well in their GCSEs. It's not the end of the world if they don't turn up. It's not the end of the world if they don't do their homework. And it's not the end of the world if they wear some sparkly earrings or a skirt that's too short. Like, and the fact that parents are kind of promoting that, they're going to go to the press and be like, they missed out on their learning because my skirt was too short. And it's like, there's a them versus us. And actually, we need to change what education is to make everybody kind of see the benefits of it and see it as, we're not there to discipline the children, we're there to make sure that they get the best out of it and make sure that they can kind of come out of it the other side as the best people possible, that they can then go on to benefit and kind of end up in life the best that they can. And I think there's a lot of pressure, especially on those highly intelligent students, to do the really intelligent subjects. And actually I found more over the last few years that I've had students kind of, they'll start all their subjects and then go, can I swap to one of yours because I need a balance, I'm really struggling, I don't have an outlet. And I had the most beautiful letter this summer from one of my students who wrote to me and quite openly said, I picked your subject because I thought it would be easy. I picked photography because I thought it would be balance my subjects and it would just be basically a piece of piss. And he said, but it was the complete opposite. He's like, it was the place that I felt myself and I found myself, and I found a side of me that I didn't realize existed, and that I was able to grow and develop myself. And it was the highlight of my week, and I loved it because I was myself and it gave me confidence. So it was really nice that he was able to, I cried when I got the letter, I'm not going to lie, but and he got a 9 and it was amazing. And he did well in his other subjects because he's very intelligent. But I think for him, he was underestimating it because that's how it's sold to them. And quite often I get the kids that aren't, I in my data, my kids are basically the lowest prior attaining students in the school. That's what I get, because then the intelligent ones aren't encouraged to do it. And it does in that, but they don't realise the benefits of it, that actually if the intelligent students did create a creative subject or did something else like PE, that actually would benefit them and balance them and maybe might avoid kind of burnout later on as well. And one of the things I found really interesting when I was kind of researching this a few years ago, I was looking at kind of the impact of the arts and things like that. And somebody, and I came across this article that actually there's a hospital in London and they employ an art teacher to go in and give the surgeons lessons. And the idea is to try and to get them to be creative and problem solve more. And they were trying to build up these skills because they were so regimented that when it came to the difficult surgeries, they were really, really struggling with how to solve them. And I think, and then I spoke to some universities after that into it, and they were like, yeah, they actually look as one of the subjects, textiles. If a kid has science and maths and stuff and then textiles, they know they've got their sewing skills, so as a surgeon they're going to be golden. But also the fact that they've got that problem solving skills, they will be able to adapt, they've learned that. And I found that really interesting, that actually universities were looking for these different subjects, but that's not filtered down into schools, and we're not kind of, that they're not given that place where they're told that it's important. What have we got from Paul? So in primary schools, we have a constant battle with various parents who give in on many things for an easy life: sugary drinks, bad choices for packed lunches, proper hours of sleep. Yeah, so I'm noticing that already. I'm like 2 weeks in after the summer holidays. I can see I've got year 10s in my tutor group, and I can see that the ones that are not getting enough sleep, that are staying up gaming, that are now really struggling with the early mornings, and that they can't quite regulate themselves. I can see them popping off. And I said, this week, I think by the end of it, they started really well, but I can see it already. And I think there isn't that like kind of emphasis for our students and stuff on the importance of sleep. And I spoke that a little bit on my healthy habits one with Carl in the summer, and that like as teachers as well, we're quite bad for it. Like we will stay up. I mean, I'm going to openly admit I've probably fallen asleep on the sofa every day the last 2 weeks, because I'm like, I can't go to bed at 9 o'clock. So that makes me very sad. But I'm just exhausted, and I know that I need to get my proper sleep in order to do my best job. And it is that whole idea that if you kind of try and push through, the quality of the work that you do and your temperament is going to go down. If you actually rest and sleep and then come back to it, you're going to get it done in a quicker time, and it's probably going to be a better output. And I think things like that we should be teaching our students, and the importance of having good sleep and good food. And as much as we want to do like free school meals and have opportunities, how much are the kids still picking the rubbish options or not eating the healthy options? But if they understood it, and it's like that with educational research, isn't it? Like, if we want staff to understand a new concept about how students learn and we want them to deliver it and help with the buy-in, we are told that we need to give them the science behind it. We need to explain to our teachers why that kind of idea is really good, and that why we should all adopt it and do it. And that's going to help with them kind of wanting to do it. But we should be doing the same with the students. We should be, rather than just like one assembly, 1 point in 1 year, we need to be explaining to them kind of regularly and in lots of different levels of detail the impact of having a Red Bull and things like that, and or other energy drinks, and having that for breakfast. I think I had a student turn up with quite a big one day, and I was like, oh, you don't. He was like, and he was saying to me that he was always tired, that's why he had it. And I was like, you're tired because you're having these spikes of sugar. And I was like, I'm going to Google how much sugar it is. And I Googled it, and it was 21 cubes of sugar that he had in that one drink. And he was drinking that every morning. And the impact that was then I was like, then you have a sugar load. That's why you then argue with all the teachers in the afternoon, and you end up getting in trouble. Like, you're ruining your education by starting off your day with a sugary drink. I think to because I'm quite stubborn, push my point home, the next week I'd brought in cubes of sugar and I stacked them up next to him. It's like, this is how much sugar was in your drink. Because I just think, like, and then to actually see it, and I know people do that, and I know that there's assemblies and we explain that to students, but I don't think they know the science of sugar and the impact that has on your body and how that can make you feel. And I think quite often that is a lot of kind of I know there's hormones and stuff with teenagers and whatnot, but actually a lot of students' kind of behaviour can be put down to kind of bad choices of habits and things like that. But yeah, so I think it's important that we kind of teach them all those different things, as well as kind of showing them all the different creative stuff. But I'm just going to play the news, and then I'm going to get Liam to come and have a chat about the importance of the creative arts.
Teaching is a rewarding profession, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. That's where ADAPT come in. We're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern, apolitical alternative, offering expert legal, employment and mental health support. Protection without the politics. So what makes ADAPT different? We're always apolitical and independent, specialised solely in supporting individual teachers. Our caseworkers are professionally qualified, ensuring you always get the best advice. Plus, there's 24/7 mental health support. Whether it's a simple contract check or handling serious allegations, ADAPT are here for you. Join the thousands of educators who've chosen ADAPT to protect their careers. Subscribe at adapt.org.uk today. ADAPT. Supporting school staff. Protecting careers.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
School suspensions featured in The Guardian, always a provocative topic. According to analysis reported in the newspaper, since the pandemic, disadvantaged pupils in England were 3.7 times more likely to be sent home than other pupils. The analysis was published alongside a separate survey of teachers who said that verbal and physical abuse from pupils had increased significantly post-pandemic. School suspensions have risen overall since COVID, up 30% in 2021 to 22, compared with 2018 to 19, but have gone up more sharply amongst disadvantaged pupils, up 75% versus 4% for non-disadvantaged. The analysis was completed by Who's Losing Learning on the latest available DFE figures for 2021 to 2022. Other groups who saw significant increases were children with social workers and children with special educational needs. The analysis also looked at geographical factors. The increase in suspensions was highest in the East Midlands, up 57%, followed by the North West and North East at 34%. The survey of NASUWT members found almost 9 out of 10 said the number of pupils exhibiting physically violent and abusive behaviours has increased in the last year. Almost 3/4 of those surveyed cited poor socialisation skills following COVID restrictions as a key driving factor behind the rise in poor pupil behaviour. When asked for comment, the DFE said it supports head teachers to take the action necessary to promote good behaviour. The TES reports on further concerns around recruitment of secondary teachers in England. Figures obtained by the NEU and NAHT show ministers are on course to miss recruitment targets by 48%. Numbers in all subjects except history, PE and classics are below the national recruitment target. The figures for last month, the final month before teacher training courses begin, shows there were 13,788 recruits. This is short of the target of 26,360. Paul Whiteman, NAHT General Secretary, said the shortages meant more children were being taught either by teachers with no qualifications in the subject, by teaching assistants, or by supply staff. A DFE spokesperson said there were record numbers of teachers in schools, up by 27,000 since 2010. But unions point out that the number of pupils in state-funded schools had risen at almost double the rate of teaching workforce. Special educational needs has been in the spotlight after reports in the media suggest that the government has signed a contract targeting 20% cuts to the number of new education, health and care plans. According to The Observer, the cuts emerged as councils across England face huge financial deficits on SEND. This is caused by rising demand and long-standing underfunding, they say. Part of the government response has been the launch of the new Delivering Better Value in SEND, which supports councils to bring down budget deficits via early intervention and teaching children with SEND in mainstream schools. The plan's design cost £19.5 million, but it suggests a reduced growth in the number of EHCPs, targeting at least a 20% reduction. Concern has been expressed by SEND campaigners around the legality of such an approach. Ministers have denied that a specific target to reduce EHCP exists, and that it was completely wrong to suggest the DFE is withdrawing support for SEND. Finally, a feature article in The Guardian focuses on research into the impact of pornography on the lives of children and young people. Abby Wright spoke to 10,000 children between 2016 and 2022. They were aged between 6 and 22 and came from a range of backgrounds across the UK. Wright is a theatre designer and did the research as part of the creation of 2 new musicals. The feature article, called Too Much Too Young, is available online, but broad findings suggest that children as young as 6 are encountering porn online, often via pop-ups, but sometimes having been introduced to it by older friends or siblings. For 9 to 11-year-olds, exposure to porn is frequent via platforms like YouTube. Children as young as 12 admitted to feeling like they were addicted to pornography. Teenagers feel that they learn more from pornography than sex education classes, particularly those exploring their sexuality or gender identity. Pornography also appears to confuse the issue of consent, particularly for young women who feel if it is okay in porn, then it's okay in real life. Whatever our thoughts on such a sensitive and challenging topic, it seems clear that relationships and sex education needs to catch up quickly for a lot of young people. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
And that feeds into the show quite well in the fact that PSHE is a side subject, it's a little add-on, isn't it? That actually they don't learn that much in it because it hasn't got enough hours and it hasn't got enough emphasis on it. And actually, we should be teaching students far more so they can have healthier relationships and things like that. But I think actually what kind of stemmed this one was actually talking to on the review show quite a while ago, and reviewing results and the discrepancies between the different parts of the country. And I think a lot of that is that people aren't exposed to different cultural capital and they don't have the opportunity to go to the theatre or go see a show or things like that. And actually, whereas in London, they're much closer and much more opportunity to do those. And I think we kind of we think of those as a privilege as opposed to something that can encourage students and improve students and give them more opportunities. So Liam, you kind of joined me tonight. So you work as a kind of like a drama teacher. You tutor students and run drama classes, but you also have worked in an alternative provision school as well. So you kind of can see the benefits of those subjects on a range of students.
Hello, Anna. Can you hear me?
You're a bit quiet. Can you?
Let me see what I can do. Is that better? Anybody?
That's much better. I can hear you now.
Hello. Yes. Yeah. So primarily, professionally, I am a playwright and a theatre director. And sort of upon leaving drama school in 2014, as you can imagine, the industry I work in being a precarious one, I needed a day job, and sort of stumbled into education, first as a sort of a teaching assistant, and then a cover supervisor, and then I've been sort of steadily working through SEND schools across London, and now back in Norfolk, which I moved back to during the pandemic. And as you've just mentioned, yes, several stints in short stay provisions for students who have been PEXed. Alongside this, I have been teaching for both Stagecoach Performing Arts and Pauline Quirk Academy for the last 5 to 6 years, and have definitely seen a vast array of students who have greatly benefited from arts education in the way that I did as a child, and that's something that has obviously led on into my later life and my career.
So I was saying at the start that kind of art schools are reducing and arts universities. So what do you think the benefits are of having like a school that's specifically aimed at that kind of thing?
I think it's the specificity of what you're learning to do, the craft of acting or any art in particular is an incredibly difficult, nuanced beast, and it's something that you only get through doing and being taught by industry professionals. Um, I think there's something unique about that sort of training and the hours needed. I trained at Drama Centre London, which has yielded an incredible amount of talent. Tom Hardy, Michael Fassbender, uh, Amelia Clark, Penelope Wilton over the years. Unfortunately, we closed last year. I was part of the closing staff. Um, the decision was made by the university host that was housing the school, UAL, that it was not financially viable to continue the course. And unfortunately, I see the pros and the cons of that as a business uh, idea, looking at it from a producing hat. But I think the sort of what that they're missing a trick there in terms of that sort of training. But however, I do feel that many more closures are on the way. These schools are incredibly hard to get into, and due to the amount of specificity that you need, realistically, you only want 16 to 20 students per year, so that those students are getting the targeted education. And if you look at more of a university drama course, you've got a year group of 100 doing 40 hours a week. We were a year group of 16 doing up to 75 hours a week. So financially, you can see how that does not work whatsoever. So I do understand the financial implications. However, if the country wants to continue to yield this talent and fantastic actors, actresses, directors, writers that we have come up with over the last 100 years, I think it's something that needs to be financially balanced, and ultimately that does mean that it is going to have to be subsidized because the fees will not cover the costs. But it's taking that chance, and do you invest in that art knowing that ultimately the other side, something like the West End, for every pound you put in, you get 10 back into the economy?
So I suppose it's that idea, isn't it, that it's at the point where they're kind of learning the craft, they're not famous, they're not making money, they're not in things. So it's and but you're producing people that go on to do that, but that's not going to come back to the school in any way, shape, or form. It's but it is giving them those skills to be able to go on and be successful. And I think it is that also that idea that it does really take dedication to be good at it. It's and people think of the kind of like drama and art as kind of wishy-washy subjects that are really easy, or you're just naturally good at it, but they don't really understand that to be really good at it you have to put a lot of hours into it.
Oh, it's phenomenally difficult. You know, I myself, as a director and a writer, I don't envy actors, I must say, and you know, I've got many actor friends, and you know, the life is difficult, the life is hard, and ultimately, you know this going into training, and it's continually said to you, but often not believed, that the majority of the time you are out of work. However, it's that sort of gamble, isn't it? It only takes one Game of Thrones to get you that success and that financial reward that will help propel you into future work. But it is a long game. It's not a reality TV quick fix. Here we are, I'm famous. If you really are interested in telling stories and not the fame side of it, it's an incredibly long game for incredibly hard-working people. And ultimately, not everybody makes it. There is an element of luck within that and an element of risk. And you need to be prepared, as I have done with the education side, financially holding up my career. Let's face it, I've had a play in the West End. I'm a published playwright, and yet that has never paid the bills. What has paid the bills is working in education, and so that's something you've got to consider. How do you balance that aspect of your life? I'm 31 now. Cannot consider getting a mortgage. Cannot consider certain aspects of building a life which other people, my friends, have managed through their careers, because that's not the kind of uh, you know ultimately, I'm currently shooting a film which I'm self-financing, and I've worked out that I have put the amount of money in as it would have cost to put a deposit down in the house, and that's the choice that I've made.
Yeah.
I'd be sat in a house thinking, oh, I really want to make that film. So I have put my money where my mouth is and sort of backed myself, but I fully understand that people may not be in the position to do that, and pros and cons to recommending that as well. But if you enjoy something and you do believe in the work, I think there is something in making it happen yourself.
Tom's asked what the film is, which ironically, I know I like to pitch my other shows. I did my Teachers with a Side Hustle, so Liam was filming in my house at that time whilst I was doing that show, because I was like, "There's actors in my house." But yeah, I'll let you explain what it is.
Sure. The film currently titled, it's changed title about 70 times. Currently titled Requiem is a feature film adaptation of a play that I had in the West End called This Is Living, published by Nick Hearn Books. Um, it chronicles a young mother who unfortunately has tragically died, and it follows the process of death and grief and transcendence to whatever you believe happens next, from a very unique perspective, and that is the perspective of the dead person themselves. It's shot like a fly on the wall documentary, and it follows the protagonist Alice from the moment of her death up until the moment of transcendence into whatever happens next.
And it's not just been in the West End. It's been on the show in Australia, and I think it's been translated into Turkey. Is it into
Yeah,
Turkish?
that's sort of been a sort of fascinating journey for that. Obviously, the show started life whilst I was at Drama Centre London, um, whereas the acting course at the school has ample opportunity in the third year to get industry attention, agents, casting directors, and so forth. The directing course, I felt very strongly there needed to be a USP for me leaving the school and entering the industry. And whilst other students had decided to direct classical plays or pieces of writing that had already been pre-performed by professional venues, I decided that to make my mark, I really needed to write something original. So I created this play. We took it to Edinburgh. Luckily, it was a success. Went into the West End and was published by Nick Hearn. And on the back of that, what has been really interesting is this is a play that sort of had its big debut and was published in 2016, and now has moved into a place where it's continually performed as part of auditions for drama schools, drama school um, showcases in the third year. And what's been really interesting is that obviously it is now available to license, and theatre companies, professional and non-professional across the world, which has been the very interesting aspect, have taken it on. So yes, we've had companies in America doing the US premiere. We've had an Australian company premiere it last year, and that's been brought back in Melbourne this year, produced by Gavin Roach for Meat Market. And yes, Turkey. Turkey was translated earlier in the year, which was a very interesting experience, purely because I don't speak Turkish. And that involved a certain degree of trust that the translation would be faithful. We received the translation from the Turkish company, and luckily I had a friend who did speak Turkish or enough to have a quick flick through and check it wasn't wildly different to what I had written. And so that was our first non-English language production, and it has been really heartwarming to turn up to these productions, having directed the sort of drama centre Edinburgh and West End runs myself. It was fascinating to turn up to productions of the play, having had absolutely no involvement of it, and to sit in the audience and just watch it. And it was terrifying the first time. I thought, oh God, I really, I mean, I can't say it's bad. I wrote the thing, so I have to, I have to get on board here. And first production I saw of it was at Rose Bruford, the drama school in Sidcup. Had a fantastic time, and I thought it was fantastic. And actually, that led to the casting of Neve Lynch, who is leading the film adaptation of it. That's how I discovered her, by going and seeing her in her second year at drama school performing the role within the play.
Tom's asked, how much money does it cost to shoot a movie? I don't know whether you know.
Well, Tom, I think we're into the 40,000 at the moment. I mean, if you're doing it on a big, obviously if you're doing it full size, you're talking minimum sort of 1.5 mil. Unfortunately, I don't have that lying in the bank, nor will credit cards get me that far. So we're talking, currently we're about 35k in. As we come up to the end of production and going into post-production, I imagine we've got another 15, 20 to go until release, and I imagine it's going to be released. It's going to go into festivals across the world. The aim is spring 25, so we've got another year of post-production. It's been a long old shoot. We've been shooting on and off for the last 2 years, and it's a very simple system of I work like mad 6 days a week for 4 to 5 months to afford 2 days of shooting, so we can afford to pay people industry standard rates, which is something that I've been very insistent upon since leaving drama school. I think there's to take the leap from a student to a professional, you have to pay people, and you have to pay people at the industry going rate. So yes, this is a film that could have been shot in 20 days. We've shot it over 2 years so that it could be fully financed well, and people can be paid what they are due, because the work in this is fantastic.
It is. I'm so excited to see it. I've seen little snippets, but I'm very excited to see it. But kind of at school, drama was the thing that kind of saved you. Is the place that kind of you found yourself.
Absolutely. School I found a little bit difficult. I'm not scared to admit. I was not a sporty kid. Terrible at sports. Still terrible at sports. And at the high school I went to at the time, there was a particular leaning towards sport. That was the sort of school's USP. And for people like me, where that wasn't, it just wasn't a thing, a possibility, there was an incredible amount of ridicule, and that was unfortunately at the time, and sort of you know, schooling has changed quite considerably from my era to the era I now work in. There was an amount of bullying, and there was an amount of an appreciation for what I enjoyed, which was the theatre. Now, within that setting, I must add, I had a fantastic drama teacher. A little shout out to Elizabeth Faraday there. Absolutely championed me what I wanted to do. I was first starting off as a writer, and then she was the one who spotted that I could direct, and subtly pulled me aside one day and said, "You know, I really think you should go for directing." So she really championed me. I did all the school plays, and that was my safe space. And especially outside of that school arena, I was part of Norwich Theatre Royal's youth theatre company. That was every Saturday. It took a huge part of my life from the ages of 11 to 19, and that was my solitude. That was my safe space. Uh, with like-minded people who perhaps hadn't in the week had the best time at school, but we came together doing something we all enjoyed. Nobody took the mick out of us. It was fantastic. We're performing on the Norwich Theatre Royal stage, Norwich Playhouse, you know, and that was our community. It's about finding your tribe. That was an incredible place, and in combination between that and Liz Faraday's encouragement within the school setting, I knew this is what I absolutely wanted to do. And I don't really know what I'd have done without that. I think it's so vitally important to have those sort of spaces, whether that's, and that's not just an art thing, it's having a space to grow in whatever field you feel you'd like to go into.
And it's finding an area that you want to do, but it's were there a lot of people kind of doing it, or is it kind of, because it's one of those, isn't it? I feel that actually if the arts were kind of promoted more, and actually it's not seen as an easy thing, because I think it's not. I think if people haven't done arts in general, they don't understand how hard it is, and you learn this real graft of, if you need to succeed, you have to graft at it. And you build and learn this resilience that I don't think you get from studying kind of maths or English. And I'm not meaning to put those subjects down, but I just feel like there's this extra set of skills that you get from them that's just really quite dismissed, but actually it should be really encouraged, and it should be put up there that people should learn to be able to do drama properly and stand and present and talk and be able to write creatively and build the resilience and learn how to communicate with people.
I think so. I think the common misconception it is just dressing up and having a bit of a laugh and mucking about, and that it isn't to be taken as seriously with the same weight as other more academic or academically perceived subjects. And I think that's completely wrong, because there's something in it that feeds into everything. If you think how many jobs require a performance aspect, a judge, a lawyer, that it's a performance. A teacher, you are doing a solid performance for that hour and a half. And if you're doing it right, you should be exhausted by the end of it. There's something about capturing an audience, holding a room, and working with others. The amount of children who turn into adults who cannot collaborate, who cannot work with others, and struggle within a day job setting. We've all got colleagues like that who cannot work in a group setting, and it's painfully obvious that they were not exposed to something group orientated and team building as a child, because those are the skills. At the end of the day, I think it's fantastic if you want to go into the arts, but that's not the sole reason I'm doing this and passing these skills on. Because ultimately, there's just something in seeing a child who comes to you and is absolutely terrified and won't speak 2 words, and a year later they're standing up and they're singing "Let It Go" from Frozen in front of a room of 50 people. There is growth. That's personal growth, and that's something that can be developed, and they'll take on to a future life. So ultimately, whether you want to go into the arts, I think is in many respects irrelevant. It's what it does and what it leaves you, the confidence, the people skills, how to hold a conversation. who's had to rely on their, you know, looks, and who's had to rely on a personality. It's some, you know, there's something in that about speaking to people, and that's gonna, you're gonna take that through to job interviews, you're gonna take that through to dates. You know, it's really important that those skills are cultivated at a young age, because once you get to a certain point, you can't you can't put that in. That's got to be there from the beginning. And I think, you know, as fabulous as maths is, it doesn't let you stand up in front of a room and to capture an imagination.
No, I completely agree, because I was a very, very shy child. I did not speak very much. I was quite quiet. And I remember my parents making me do the Lambda kind of drama speaking exams. I had to learn the poems and repeat them and stuff. And actually that was what made me become more confident to be able to stand up and say things in front of people. And I think actually that's kind of one of the reasons I when I eventually got into teaching, and I didn't do teacher training. My first job, I interviewed for a maternity leave position, and my first lesson I ever taught was my interview lesson, and I just went into that and absolutely thrived and loved it. And I think those it's the, like you said, the skills that you don't expect to gain from it that carry you through life and can really benefit you in kind of any situation.
I think so. I think you're ultimately going to achieve more if you can hold someone's attention and you can communicate well. And that's something that drama allows you to do. And it also allows you to learn the skill of problem solving, which is applicable to any walk of life, to raising a family, to managing a team. You're continually, you know, just living is a continual problem solving exercise. Now, what drama allows you to do is to work out how we're going to do something. Okay, let's collaborate here. You're going to do that, you're going to do that. How do we work together, pull all these elements together into creating a final product? I think it's so beneficial. Again, you know, even if you don't want to go into acting, there's just something about finding a voice and having your say, working with others, and, you know, what that does for you. And you might get this through sport, you know, it's a similar thing. You're creating a community, you're working with other people. That's a fantastic thing. You know, people do like moments of solitude, but I think being able to communicate with people is something that pushes things forward.
But also there's that side of resilience, like you don't go in and just perform. You have to practice over and over and over again, and it's same with art. You have to draw over and over and over again to improve. And I think you don't necessarily get that with other subjects. I think it builds that resilience and that ability to, one more time, just do it one more time, just change that and just do it one more time, and that kind of strive for perfection that you know you'll never might not get to, but you still go through all the process of it.
Yeah, I think there's just something of sticking in it, isn't it? Isn't there? It's about uh, showing up, turning up, doing something you've committed to, and staying with something for a long period of time. You know, there's really something beneficial as a child about having 12 weeks to rehearse a play. That's what you're doing. Okay, I've signed up for this. I'm going to commit to this every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm going to spend my after school doing this thing, working towards this goal communally with these people. I'm not going to drop out. I'm not going to let people down. I've said I'm going to be here. I've been entrusted with this role, or these costumes, or these lights. Something, you know, people are relying on me. And to put your heart into something and really make a difference there, I think it's a fantastic thing. I do, and you know, this is what saddens me, that this education is being systematically cut back within schools. You know, it's not something on a primary level that we have anymore. You know, it's not. You know, I've worked in sort of 40 primary schools over the last 5 to 10 years, sort of as supply or short term, long term. There's very little drama. Some schools might have the school production. They might do the Easter story or the nativity, but that's about it. You know, it's very points based. It's very on the academic. It's very on the sport, and unfortunately, the art, the drama, it's seen as an addition. It's really nice. We all like it, but let's, you know, come on, it's not going to change the world. But ultimately, in 2020, we realized it really was a necessity, and I bet all those people who were naysaying it and cutting it sat down and watched Netflix. And where do you think that content comes from? It's by people who, as a child, went to a drama class.
It is that, isn't it? That it's, as the budgets are getting smaller, the arts are the ones that get cut, but actually they're the places that build the students. And actually, maybe that's the correlation. Maybe it's actually that as we cut the arts and they cut the drama, that's why the behaviour is going down, because they're not having these outlets. They're not finding those life skills of how to balance themselves.
Well, it's focus, isn't it? It's finding ways to communicate with people, especially in these short-term provisions. I'm working with children who cannot communicate with each other without violence or without swearing or without, with no manners. Because ultimately, I fully appreciate that it is quicker to get something if you punch somebody for it than ask them nicely, because they haven't been modelled ways of communication which are socially acceptable. And there's something about just taking them out of their comfort zone, leading them into a world of imagination where they can see, and it can be modeled to them, there are different ways of communicating, and more productive ways that don't hurt them or other people. And I think it's a difficult one, because I understand that a lot of teachers don't feel comfortable delivering this content. It does require something of you, something that might be uncomfortable and foreign for you if you've not done it before. It may not be your cup of tea. I wouldn't be particularly at home. Somebody handed me a rugby ball and said, you've got to teach year 9. But it's actually, teaching drama is about unlocking other people's potential. It's not so much about performance yourself. It's creating a space in which they have complete freedom to enter a world of imagination.
And I think also as well, like you said, like we're all watching far more telly and Netflix or whatever subscriber than previously, and our kids are watching way more YouTube than previous years, and gaming and things like that. But essentially, they all link back to art and drama. Of like, they could be a game designer, or if they wanted to get into YouTube, which if you ask most of the kids when they're younger, what do you want to be? It's not a footballer anymore. It's like, I want to be YouTube famous. But if they haven't got those skills and they haven't learned their confidence, then then not that it's a perhaps a fulfilling job. I don't know. I'm not YouTube famous, but they're all skills that they have to learn from those. But then there's that negative disconnect, perhaps, where kids aren't like, oh, drama's not cool. It's like, it's an interesting one, isn't it? For the amount of hours that we absorb from the arts, that not more hours are put into it in education.
I think that's ultimately the key, isn't it? That link isn't being made. Being a YouTuber is being a performer. You've just got a different stage. It's acting for screen. Instead of standing in front of an auditorium, you're sat in front of a camera. But ultimately, you have to perform. If you're sat there just going, and then I'm going down here, and then I'm gonna go down here, and then I'm jumping here, people are gonna turn off, and you're gonna be hard pushed to monetize that. The people who are making it in that industry, your Joe Suggs, your Zoellas, your Mr. Beast, they've got fabulous personalities. They're characters. They've created a character. I doubt Mr. Beast is Mr. Beast in real life. It's a character,
Yeah.
fantastic character, and he has managed to phenomenally monetize this piece of what is essentially performance art, and people love it. People want to see it. It's no different to people going, love Judi Dench, I want to go see her work. It's the same thing. People aren't making that link, and that's very frustrating, because ultimately it's just a new medium. It's a new performance medium. People aren't looking at film stars anymore. They're looking at YouTubers. It's the same thing. Let's make that link. Let's introduce those things, because ultimately, to be a successful YouTuber, you've got to be able to communicate. You've got to be able to express. You've got to be able to entertain.
And I think that's it. Like, I was saying at the start of the show that I don't think, as a country, we've grasped how much money the creative industry brings to our country, and it's massively grown in that as since the stats I read out were pre-COVID, so they would have gone through the roof since COVID, and it's the growth of the industry versus any other industry in the country is exponential. It's growing so much, and there's so many jobs, but also it's like it's also one of those areas that it's a job that you generally get job satisfaction. I mean, you've put everything into doing your film because you love it and you enjoy it. And I think that's something that I think isn't sold enough. Like, we need to be telling the kids, find things that you enjoy.
Oh, absolutely. You know, ultimately, I'm past the point of taking work now that I don't enjoy, especially just for a financial gain. What a sad world it will, I fully appreciate that people do have to take employment that they're not, they're not crazy about. I think that's such a shame. And I think, why not go for the thing you want to do? If there's something that absolutely makes your heart soar, why not do it? And why not try and that be the thing? Because what a fantastic thing if you get to if you get to get up every day and do your hobby for your job. That's an absolutely fantastic thing to be able to do. So how do we do that? How do we encourage that when
Sorry,
people?
Liam, you've gone a little bit quiet again. Can you just say that
Oh, can
again?
you hear
And
me? Is
yes.
that better? Well, I
Yeah.
just think it's a fantastic thing if you are able to stand up and get up every day and think, oh, I get to go and do my hobby today, and my hobby is my job, and I absolutely love doing that. Instead of having to get up and go, oh, I really don't want to go to work. I don't love this. And I appreciate that people do have to make sacrifices and go down routes that they don't particularly, they're not absolutely crazy about because they have bills to pay, they have children to look after. And I just think if you've got a chance to do something, and especially as an educator, that has to be encouraged. You know, I can't, I can't tell somebody who wants to be an actor, brilliant, you're going to make all the money in the world, it's going to be an easy ride for you. I have to lay down the realities of them, but it is not my job to dismiss that or to put them off. Ultimately, the industry is difficult as it is, and it will do that for them. You'll soon find out if it's not working. I think it's an educator's job to be an optimist for that person and to be a champion of what they want to do and back them and give them the necessary route and skills that they can provide to setting them on the path towards what they want to do. After that, it's up to that person. But we're in a position as an educator to really inspire. And if somebody wants to be a YouTuber, who am I to dismiss that? Okay, great. How do we be a YouTuber? What skills do we need? How do we sharpen those skills while you're with me? Great. Let's do this. Let's put some fire in your belly to want to be able to do that. Then it's up to you. But let's have that, people need a lift. Children especially, they need a helping hand. Let's give them that.
And I think it's also, as educators, we need to show them that we don't get pinholed in these tiny little pockets. Like, I find it really funny. We have a careers quiz at my school where every now and then we have to write what we did when we were younger, and the kids always think, because I put that I was an underwater videographer and I used to film sharks for the Discovery Channel, and they all think it's the geography teacher always, every time. And it's like, when they find out it's me, they're quite shocked. But I was like, it's knowing that there's other options. And I guess it's like your teacher saying to you, like, have you, what about directing? Like, it's for them opening their eyes to potentially past their home and their family, and showing them that there's a whole nother world out there with so many different jobs, and jobs have changed and developed over time, and they are more creative and there are more of them. And also, not to mention that you're far less likely to be or what's the word, robotic, oh, I can't remember, think of the word, where you, like, your job isn't going to be taken over by a robot. Basically, you've got far, if you do a creative job, you're far more likely to have a job security as well.
I think so. You know, as AI can do fantastic things, but it can't produce something with heart, and it needs a human input to create art. That is something indisputably human. And I think there's something ultimately jobs are being created all the time. If you think about it, I'm 31. Being a YouTuber was not a job as a child. YouTube was that thing with videos on. People didn't take selfies. We didn't have social media. Being an influencer seems, I still struggle with that slightly because it wasn't around when I was younger, and I still don't fully understand it. But hey, it's clearly working. So jobs are being created all the time and different paths. So technology changes, and we've got to, look at streaming. Netflix was something you got a DVD in the post, and now it's the biggest
Yeah.
thing in the world, and that's in the space of 10 years. So, you were preparing people for these careers, not dismissing them. Times change. People don't want to be a lawyer all the time. People don't want to work in science all the time. You know, who are we to dismiss these different ideas that and career routes that maybe weren't a thing for us just because we don't fully understand them.
And I think that's the thing with my photography GCSE. A lot of people think, oh, it's just easy, you just take pictures. But actually, they're learning all these skills of how to like compose things and how to edit them, and they're building those skills that can go on. If they then create a brand, they can go do that. I mean, I live next to a winery, and they called me in because I've got a friend that works there, and they bought all the photography gear and they didn't know how to set it up. So I went in and showed them and taught them how to set it up and how to take product photos and things. So there's so many. It's not just going and taking photos, and there's so much more to it. But if you can do it properly, there's so many jobs in it, and I think we're not showing our young people the benefits of the alternatives, because there's so much that's just like maths and English and science. That's what you need to succeed. If you do well in those, you'll do well in life and you'll get a good job and you'll get paid loads of money. But it's like, actually, there's this whole other side, and it should be just as even. It shouldn't be on a back foot. It should be just as valued.
No, absolutely. And I think that ultimately is our job, uh, to push people in the direction that they want to go down and offer insight into alternate routes that could, sort of cross fertilize with that job. You talk about photography. It's not just about taking photos. It's not just about art. Every single product, every single business has photographic marketing. That, and who's that done by? A photographer. Who you've dismissed for, oh, you just go and take photos. That photo is making 70 million for a company. That one advertisement photo of David Beckham is selling those boxes, that perfume. It's very small-minded to think of things in such a small minutiae way.
Well, I know you've got a dash off, so I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing your stories. I do find it all very fascinating, and I'm
You're
so
very
excited
welcome.
to see the film.
Thank you very much. I'll keep you posted. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I think that's the thing with the creative industry, is that there's so much available to our students that we're not showcasing to them. We're not showing them the value of it. Obviously, a couple of years ago, Culture Capital popped up, and the idea that actually being exposed to all these things do give our students a benefit, and actually it benefits them across all the other subjects. So not only are we saying that actually if we put more value on these subjects, it will benefit the students, but actually it will benefit across all the subjects, and all the subjects will see an increase in performance if we show the opportunity and expose the students to all these different things. But I think since COVID was quite good in the fact that everything went online, and it is easier to expose students. And I know I've done quite a lot of online workshops, and there is that opportunity to be able to expose students digitally to people. But I think the physical thing has disappeared in the terms that, and I understand as a head, the pressures of a budget, and especially with the increase of electricity costs and pay rises and things, that there is this massive squeeze on budgets. But ultimately, it's the arts that are kind of losing it, because they are expensive. They are expensive to run, but actually they are so beneficial to our students. And the same as, like, I think DT has declined massively in the fact that because it's expensive to run a workshop, it's expensive to buy enough equipment and enough wood and metal for 160, 70 kids for a whole year group. Like, it's expensive to run these. And the government need to push more into them. I know that there's lots of STEM stuff and looking at that side, but the traditional arts is running out, and it's like that. I know that my school isn't doing a play this year. They're going to save up the money and fundraise to be able to do it next year, because the money to buy the lights and renting the lights and the equipment was just costing so much. They weren't making that back in ticket sales because they didn't want to charge parents that much to be able to come and see it, or they wouldn't be able to. And so they're trying to fundraise and raise enough money to be able to buy the set themselves, so they'll be able to do it for future years. But not only that, from having friends that are drama teachers, and the amount of hours that go into it behind the scenes, the amount of after schools and the weekends and the actual shows themselves, the amount of extra hours they put in, and generally they're not paid for those extra hours. They do it out of the love of their heart because they want those students to have that opportunity. And I think that goes for all of them, like music showcases and stuff like that. The amount of lunch times those staff give up, the art clubs, the sporting activities from the PE, the catering clubs after school. There's just so much that those staff give up and give to their subjects because they love them. But as the workload increases and the stress of teaching increases, because it's not the same beast that it used to be. It is harder to teach now than it was, and you're not having the energy to do all those things at the end of the day, or it's creating burnout of amazing teachers because they've just run out of energy because they've given it everything. And they're the teachers that we need to protect, but we also need to make sure that they feel really appreciated, because I think as one of these secondary subjects that isn't as important, that quite often as a teacher of one of those subjects, you feel like your subject isn't as important. You can work as hard as you want, but other people will get the focus even though their results were nowhere near as yours. Like, ultimately your results don't matter as much because it's not a core subject. But actually, I had one kid that barely attended school last year, had really bad mental health issues, and I managed to get her in on the strike days and spend the day one-to-one with me because I was in school. I had 3 school refusers, but all came in on strike day to spend the time with me, and they all passed. But this one girl, she ended up getting a 5, and that was the only GCSE she got because she couldn't deal with the stress of the other subjects. But that she needed that, because I was shopping in Lidl. I'm not afraid to admit it. And I had my headphones in. I was away with the fairies, and she came running up to me. Was like, Miss Wilson, gave me the biggest hug, and was just like, thank you for everything you did for me. And it's like, it made a difference to that child. She needed to achieve in something, and I was the place that she could do it. I'm the place that she can now go and be like, yeah, I may have mentally not been able to equip myself to do the other things. I really struggled, but I did achieve in something. I didn't fail on everything. I did achieve in something. And I think it is that the arts have that opportunity to have a place, like a safe place for the quirky students to find themselves. And I know I quite openly let students pick topics and they will explore things, and I'm quite often the safe space where they open up and tell me things. And students that do not cope with other subjects and the pressures that other subjects give them, but thrive in mine, and that shouldn't be discounted because my subject is seen as easy. They have worked hard to pass my subject. They haven't just passed it out of chance because they rocked up and were okay. They've done it because they have worked hard, and they found a different place that they were able to, and they could access it, and they've learnt the skills from it. And it shouldn't be dismissed because it's not some amazingly difficult mathematic equation. I feel like I've slanted maths tonight, but I have maths A level. I do love maths. I have a secret maths love, but it's a different skill, and it's a different skill set, and they're amazing skill sets that can be taken on, and they are the skills that mean that you'll do better in a job. Being creative, being able to problem solve, being resilient, being able to stand up in public and being able to communicate with people are just amazing skills that means that you can take on anything that life throws on you, and that you are able to build on that and find a job that you love and that's not work, and means that you have a good mental health, because it's important. I think the emphasis needs to swap. We shouldn't be pushing people to find jobs that make money. We should be pushing people to find jobs that they love and that they can live off, not struggle, because we don't want to give them the mental health benefits of kind of what that is, but we need to give them the skills and the opportunities to go find things that they love and find out about all the different opportunities that are available to them, because there is this whole other world as technology has changed that has created this whole creative industry that has grown. We don't have 5 channels on telly like we used to when we were kids. There are thousands of channels of telly, and each one of them is made up of actors and screenwriters and directors and wardrobe and makeup and costume designers and runners and light technicians and camera users. And it's just like there's so much that's available to our students that we should show them that that's an opportunity. But granted, if you want to go in that industry, you have to work hard, and our students are lacking that resilience. So maybe this is the answer. Maybe this is how we get our students to reconnect with how to graft and how to be resilient and how to problem solve and how to thrive, more importantly. And I think we do that through the creative arts, but I expand that to all kind of other subjects. And like earlier, we talked about the importance of food tech and them understanding how to have healthy diet and the impact that their diet has on their body and their mood. And same with fitness, the benefits and the mental health benefits of fitness. Not that you don't want school to be this kind of like god awful recall of rounders. We want them to be able to understand all the health benefits, the benefits of being able to go for a run, or the benefits to go to a gym. Like, we need to be able to show them access to all the things that they will have after school. It shouldn't be that school is a different entity to after they leave education. We need to close that gap in between what school life is and what the work environment is and what real life is like, and kind of help them transition between them. So I'm going to end the show there. I hope you've enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of your Monday evening.
Teaching is a rewarding profession, but it comes with its fair share of challenges. That's where ADAPT come in. We're not your typical trade union, but instead a modern, apolitical alternative, offering expert legal, employment and mental health support. Protection without the politics. So what makes ADAPT different? We're always apolitical and independent, specialised solely in supporting individual teachers. Our caseworkers are professionally qualified, ensuring you always get the best advice. Plus, there's 24/7 mental health support. Whether it's a simple contract check or handling serious allegations, ADAPT are here for you. Join the thousands of educators who've chosen ADAPT to protect their careers. Subscribe at adapt.org.uk today. ADAPT. Supporting school staff. Protecting careers.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.